Thursday morning, about 8 o'clock, I open my laptop, all ready to fall into Uber creator mode and try to write a sermon on the deadly relational sin of pride, this force that destroys relationships, causes division and enmity between people. And so I'm just starting to think into it, and all the thoughts of the week are filling my head, and I'm getting full of an idea of where this can go, and all of a sudden this voice comes from the kitchen and walks over and sort of stands this right here in my space and says, "Can you read this?" And I said, What? She says, "Can you read my pension, this pension thing that I can get into," my wife Fran says, "because I got to decide pretty soon whether we want to go into this plan or not." I said, "Well, it's your pension. Can't you read it?" "Well, we've been talking about this. Can't you read it and we'll do it together?" And I said, "Whose pension is it?" She said, "It's mine." I said, "You read it." So she sort of drops it onto my chair and gets her shoes on and heads off to school, and I sit there feeling like a total idiot, writing my sermon on pride. Pride is defined as inordinate self-centredness, self-absorption, and self-esteem. Inordinate self-centeredness, self-absorption, and self-esteem. It is the self filled with self, and it's most often born out of insecurity. Unlike some of the other deadly sins, pride stands alone. While greed and lust and gluttony and sloth and envy and anger can bring people together, pride doesn't. By definition, it separates, divides. It is enmity. And so there I sit with my definition, going, "You are a piece of work, John." And then 5 minutes later, Fran gets to work, sends me an email responding to an earlier email about a booking we made for our 25th anniversary trip to Italy this year. And her email back just says, "This is so exciting!" Exclamation mark. And I know what she was saying. Italy is exciting, but what she's really saying is, "I forgive you, you idiot, and I still love you." And we're both reminded of this bigger thing, this bigger relational thing within which this very small thing happened. We have an amazing love and respect for each other, and are really quite unsure as to why God would grant this gift, this mystery of love to us. And then in that very humbled moment after reading her email, I'm reminded of an even bigger relational thing. I was reading my next psalm in my list of psalms, came across these words. The poet says, "Listen, God, please pay attention. Can you make sense of these ramblings, my groans and cries? King God, I need your help. Every morning you'll hear me at it again. Every morning I lay out the pieces of my life on your altar and watch for fire to descend. You don't socialize with wicked or invite evil over as your house guest. Hot air boaster collapses in front of you." And I just sort of went kind of weak in that phrase. Hot air boaster collapses in front of you. You shake your head over mischief maker. God destroys lie speaker. Bloodthirsty and truth bender disgust you. And here I am, and yet here I am, your invited guest. It's incredible. I enter your house. Here I am, prostrate in your inner sanctum, waiting for directions to get me safely through enemy lines. Every word they speak is a landmine. Their lungs breathe out poison gas. He's referring to wicked, sinful, broken people. Their throats are gaping graves. Their tongues slick as mudslides. He's referring to broken, wicked people. Pile on the guilt, God. Let their so-called wisdom wreck them. kick them out. They've had their chance. But you'll welcome us with open arms when we run for cover to you. Let the party last all night. Stand guard over our celebration. You are famous, God, for welcoming God-seekers, for decking us out in delight. And so pride is the relational sin for this morning, although it's never just one, right? They travel in packs. But the focus this morning is on pride. And according to the experts, it's a deadly sin that infects us all. None of us are free from the power and control of pride. C.S. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity, "If you think that you are not conceited, then you are very conceited indeed." And Jesus made the same point, except Jesus, in ever Christ-like ways, does it with a parable. He told his next story. This is who he told it to some who were complacently pleased with themselves over their moral performance and looked down their noses at the common people. So around Jesus, all kinds of commoners, all kinds of losers, all kinds of people who knew they were sinners, and all kinds of other people who were leaders and moral examples, and the Pharisees in particular were a sect that had it together, and to that mixed crowd, Jesus tells this story. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a taxman. The Pharisee posed and prayed like this: "Oh God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, robbers, crooks, adulterers, or, heaven forbid, like this taxman looking over with disdain. I fast twice a week and I tithe on all my income." Meanwhile, the taxman, slumped in the shadows, his face in his hands, not daring to look up, said, "God, give mercy. Forgive me, a sinner." Jesus commented, "This taxman, not the other, went home made right with God. If you walk around with your nose in the air, you're going to end up flat on your face. But if you're content to be simply yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you will become more than yourself." A proud person, Lewis writes, is always looking down on things and people. And of course, as long as you're looking down, you can't see something that is above you. Unlike the tax collector, the Pharisee never looked up. He wasn't able to look up because he was so filled with looking down on others. He was too good, in the worst sense of the word. And what a pompous, self-righteous jerk, right? Who would sit there in a temple, in a church, saying, "God, thank you, I'm not like her or him." And that was Jesus' point. When I look down my nose and I judge that pompous jerk, I expose my personal problem with pride. There is one vice of which no man in the world is free, no woman either, which everyone in the world loathes when she sees it in someone else, and of which hardly any people ever imagine that they are guilty themselves. And pride is a huge relationship destroyer. When yourself is filled with yourself, you have no room for others. You have no room for the other. They say it was pride that caused Adam and Eve to reach for that forbidden fruit that led to that original fall. They wanted to be more. They wanted to exalt themselves and be like God. And I think it's safe to say that pride has led to every fall and every human being ever since. It divides, it separates, it is enmity.